اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق.
So we are going to go through the first makharij. We mentioned there are principal makharij, and there are five makharij and points of articulations. There are five principles. Number one, we mentioned that it is makharij al-jawf, which represent the oral cavity and the throat cavity, which we are going to explain later on in this video. The second one was the throat, which represent the 6 letters of Arabic language, such as Ain and Ha and Kha and Ghain and Ha. And the next part is makharij al-lisan, which is the tongue, and whatever inside the mouth represent the movement of the tongue around the teeth, the roof of the mouth, touching the teeth and so on. And the next one is the lips. And the last makharaj is the makharaj of the nasal cavity, which is called makharaj al-khayshum, or makharaj the nostrils, where the ghunna comes from. So as you know that there are so many letters in Arabic language. Now, how do they distribute through the part of the body that the sounds exit? And the sound comes from these points of articulations. Number one, the ulama have decided that knowing this makharij is very important. And we need to go through it because we cannot recite the Qur'an without knowing where is the makharij of the letters such as a zal or a dha. If we don't differentiate the makharij, then we could pronounce the same zay and dha and zal would be all za. So the makharij, knowing the makharij is a very important, as Imam al-Jazari say in his poetry, إذ واجب عليهم محتم قبل الشروع أولا أن يعلموا مخارج الحروف والصفات ليلفظوا بأفصح اللغات. So it is a duty, it is a compulsory upon all the Muslims to know at least the minimum requirement of this tajweed. And among this tajweed, it is makharij al-huruf, the sifat, the qualities and the attributes, so they can pronounce properly the Qur'an al-Kareem. So makharij al-huruf, there are 17 makharij. As we mentioned, there are 5 principles, but there are 17 makharij, and each makharij of these 17 has their own points of articulations. Now we are going to talk about this principal makharij. How do we know the makharij, first of all? So the ulama mentioned that if you bring the letter and make the letter sakin, such as ab, and make a fatha or a dhamma or a kasra, probably kasra or a fatha, that's the ulama mention, and say ab, and whatever the sounds ends, then that movement of the last part of the body, that is the makharaj. So for example, if I want to know what is the makharaj of looking at this diagram of this drawing of makharaj al-jawf, we see that the sound hits and vibrates through when it comes the air produced from the lungs and goes up through the throat and then comes through the roof of the mouth, between the roof of the mouth and the tongue, and then the sound is produced. So if it stops here, then produces the letters of the throat. If it stops here, the qaf and the kaf. If it's here, then the jim and the shin and the ya. If it's here, then the mim, and so on. Now, when we say this makharaj is muqaddar and estimated, it is not a point. The ulama mentioned because it passes through all these area, and that's why it's called muqaddar, means estimated. It is not really a fixed point, and that's why we have these 3 letters. Number 1 is the alif with a sukoon preceded with a fatha, such as qa, ba, ta, and waw sakin preceded with a dhamma, such as qu, fu, su, and ya sakina preceded with a kasra, such as fi, bi. And so this alif and waw and ya sakin preceded with similar fatha, with the origin fatha, dhamma, kasra, or waw sakin and ya sakin only, they call them the letters of mad, but they mad al-lin preceded with a fatha, such as Quraysh. The ya sakin preceded with a fatha, arai, araish. Or waw sakin preceded with fatha, jawf, as we mean makharij al-jawf, khawf, saw. So these are the letters of mad. Their makharaj would be muqaddar. It is not fixed point, but it goes makharaj al-jawf between the throat and between the mouth. The makharaj al-jawf and the letters and how to pronounce, how to know the makharaj and the point of articulation. As we know, and as I have mentioned at the beginning, this makharaj, it's called estimated. It is muqaddar, it is not muhaqqaq, which is it is not a fixed point to a part of the body of the mouth or the throat, but it is that empty space which exists between the throat and the mouth, which is this area here, throat cavity and the oral cavity, and it is not the nasal cavity. And why I mention this, because this is one of the common mistakes when someone try to imitate a shaykh or a qari and start to read Qur'an and say أعوذ بالله من الشيطان, and using that nasal makhraj. Now, this is a common mistake. Even the Imam al-Jazari used to mention in his book, and the ulama, they say حروف مد للهواء تنتهي. They are letters ends where the air ends. It is not where the nose or it is not at the throat. It is that space where the air is. It is there where resides the letters of mad, but it is not in the nose. So in the nasal cavity, for example, it is for the ghunna. So if you say, for example, qa, qa, instead of qala, and how do I get rid of that? I just try to practice and close my nostrils and my nose like this, putting my fingers there and say qala, qala. And if I have that problem and I say, for example, qala, 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 I feel that I blocked the nostrils and I blocked the nasal cavity. I did not let the air coming from there, and I realize that I'm trying to do it from there. So this is a common mistake in reading Qur'an. So try to avoid it by knowing this is the makhraj. So if you read Qur'an, do not use the nostrils for the mad. So the letters of mad, briefly, as I mentioned, there are alif sakina preceded with a fatha, ya sakina preceded with a kasra, and waw sakina preceded with a dhamma, or maddul lin, which are the two letters waw and ya waw and ya sakin preceded with a fatha, such as jawf and quraish, and or khawf. I gave the example because jawf is there. And the last thing I would like to mention, that the letter of the alif sakin, it is according to the letter preceded. For example, if I say qala, qa, qa, so the alif is mufakham, it is a heavy because of the qaf. So whenever the letter is heavy, you make the letter alif qaf, the letter alif of mad heavy. But if it is empty mouth, light, then you make it light and empty mouth. For example, you would say ja'a, you wouldn't say ja'a, you wouldn't say ba, and you wouldn't say, like some people say, taba, taba, tabara, taba, qa, ta. So the letter of khussa, dhagtin, qidh, kha, sad, ta, dad, ghain, and za, we will see them later on in the qualities of the letters. Jazakumullahu khairan for listening.
ربك الذي خلق